The atmosphere in the land of the Golden Crown is so heavy right now. You could feel the tension pressing against your chest. It is not just about palace politics anymore. It has turned into a battle for survival. For a while, we all thought the sun was finally shining on the palace. Queen Naomi had been spending so much time there, coming from Lagos at least 3 times a week. Relationships were being rebuilt and the old fears were starting to fade away. Even though the forest ritual had not been done yet, the Golden King and Queen Naomi were already rekindling their love behind closed doors, acting like the royals we all love to see. But suddenly, everything changed. The Golden King, being a man who carries the weight of many secrets, realized that Queen Naomi's constant travel was becoming a problem. Her business in Lagos was suffering, and the risk of being on the road so often with the young prince was starting to weigh on his mind. He told her, "There is no need for this. Spend more time here once your villa is ready. Let us protect what we have." She was happy, moving into her villa gradually, feeling like she was finally back where she belonged. However, when the shocking revelation burst, the one about the spiritual veil and the deceit hiding in the palace, the Golden King's heart filled with a different kind of fear. He didn't just want her comfortable, he wanted her safe. Without warning, he personally took Queen Naomi back to the royal mansion, far away from the palace wahala. This was the state of things when Olori Shadow was giving her 3-hour eviction notice. When she realized she was being thrown out and that Queen Naomi had been moved to safety, she felt the ground slip from under her feet. She knew her reputation was already smelling like something that had been left out in the sun too long. In a desperate move, she ran straight to the royal mansion. She thought she could speak to Queen Naomi woman to woman. She thought they had moved past the old wars. But when she got there, she was met with a fire she never expected. Queen Naomi didn't just turn her away, she dismantled her with words that left Olori Shadow shivering in the cold.
When Olori Shadow arrived at the royal mansion, she looked like someone who had been dragged through a forest of thorns. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were puffy, and her clothes were rumpled from the chaos of her 3-hour eviction. She expected a listening ear, maybe a little bit of that famous Jewel Messi. But the moment she stepped onto the property, the air turned freezing. Queen Naomi did not even let her settle into a chair before she let out a blast that shook the very foundations of the room. "You have no right to enter here. You have no right to even have come here, and I don't understand what you are doing in this place." Queen Naomi's voice was like a whip. It wasn't the voice of a friend, it was the voice of a woman who was completely done with the drama. Olori Shadow stood there, frozen. She tried to find her voice, stammering about the new relationship they were supposedly building. She reminded Queen Naomi about the peace and love they had been promoting lately in their marriage to the Golden King. She talked about how they were trying to learn about each other again and build a collective front for the sake of the crown. But Queen Naomi cut her off before she could even finish the sentence. "Not you and I," she snapped. "Go back to your husband and say all of this to him. Your husband is the one who told me you have no right to enter this royal mansion." My crown guest friends and families, can you imagine the embarrassment? To be told by your fellow wife that your own husband has banned you from her side? It was a total shutdown. Queen Naomi made it clear that she wasn't going to play any more games. She told Olori Shadow she would not allow her to pretend to be at peace while she continued to do things that hurt the Golden King. Olori Shadow began to wail. She fell to her knees, claiming that she was being trapped by people who wanted to use her against the king. She admitted that yes, she had done things in the past. She wasn't denying that her hands had been dirty before, but she kept screaming that this new revelation, the one that caused her to be kicked out of the palace, was different. She insisted that her hands are clean now. She told Queen Naomi, "I am not doubting the message that came to the Golden King. I am not doubting the spiritual warnings from the rituals, but I am saying that I am not part of any counsel or device forming against him today." She was crying so much, her tears were soaking the floor. She said she wasn't shocked that her name was the first on the list because once your hand has touched something before, people will always say it smells. But she pleaded with Queen Naomi to look past the past. She said the king needs to dig deeper because if he only looks at the old suspects, herself, Gospel, and Igby, he will miss the real danger that is currently breathing the same air as him inside the palace. The tension in that room was so high, you could almost see the sparks flying between the two women. Queen Naomi stood tall, protective and fierce, while Olori Shadow lay broken on the floor, a queen who had lost everything in the blink of an eye.
Even with the rejection ringing in her ears, Olori Shadow refused to leave quietly. She started talking, really talking. She told Queen Naomi things she had been hiding for months. She said the only reason she hadn't spoken up when she was first relegated to the quarters was because she didn't want it to look like she was just trying to cause wahala for others to save herself. But now that her life was on the line, the secrets had to come out. She begged Queen Naomi, saying, "You are the one the Golden King listens to. You are his sight. Tell him to look at the people who still have 24/7 access to him. This new revelation about alliances with the Golden Crown elders, it's not us. If they keep blaming the old Oloris, something terrible will happen to the king, and they will just look at our direction while the real killers escape." Olori Shadow was hysterical now. She claimed that because she had started opening her mouth and speaking the truth, many people were already being fired in the palace. She said the reason the king is even finding out anything at all is because she decided to start blowing the whistle on the people working from the inside. She mentioned that there are people who are acting like angels, people who are quiet and look innocent, but they are the ones forming the most dangerous alliances with the fallen elders. She warned that the elders are desperate to win at any cost, and they are using everyone, servants, staff, and even secret visitors who can get close to the king's food or his private chambers. "The elders want his crown and they are walking through people you wouldn't suspect," she screamed as Queen Naomi began to walk away. Olori Shadow was hysterical now. She claimed that because she had started opening her mouth and speaking the truth, many people were already being fired at the palace. She said the reason the king is even finding out anything at all is because she decided to start blowing the whistle on the people working from the inside. She mentioned that there are people who are acting like angels, people who are quiet and look innocent, but they are the ones forming the most dangerous alliances with the fallen elders. She warned that the elders are desperate to win at any cost, and they are using everyone, servants, staff, and even secret visitors who can get close to the king's food or his private chambers. "The elders want his crown, and they are walking to people you wouldn't suspect," she screamed as Queen Naomi began to walk away. Olori Shadow was desperate. She said that her being thrown out was actually a win for the enemies because it removed one of the people who knew their secrets. She claimed that she was the only one brave enough to tell the king the truth, and now that she was gone, the veil would become even thicker. "My crown grieves friends and families." The emotion in her voice was so raw, it was hard to tell if she was a master actress or a woman truly terrified for her husband's life. She kept repeating that she didn't want anything to happen to the Golden King, but she feared that the people around him were already cooking something that he wouldn't survive. She was begging for an investigation, not for herself, but for the entire land of the Golden Crown. She was literally gasping for air, trying to get the word out before the gods escorted her away. She was shouting about alliances, secret meetings, and devices being formed against the throne. It was a scene of total chaos.
The showdown at the royal mansion ended in a way that left everyone's heart heavy. Queen Naomi, the jewel, didn't stay to hear the end of the lamentations. She simply turned her back, her royal robes sweeping the floor as she walked deeper into the mansion, leaving Olori Shadow behind. The door was finally shut, and the silence that followed was more painful than the screaming. Olori Shadow was escorted off the property, a woman who had come seeking an ally but found only a judge. She moved back to her house outside the palace gates, but her words are still echoing through the land of the Golden Crown. If what she says is true, that people are still being fired because of her revelations, then a massive cleansing is indeed happening. But the big question remains, is the king cutting off the right branches or he's leaving the poisoned root inside? The king has taken every step to keep Queen Naomi safe, but Olori Shadow's warning suggests that the danger is much closer than anyone thinks. The atmosphere in the palace is now filled with suspicion. Every servant is a suspect, every quiet corner is a place for a potential plot. The peace we thought we saw was just a blanket covering a bed of snakes. My dear Crown Jest families and friends, as we wrap up this heavy update, I must remind you that all this information is based on rumors, allegations, and unverified reports currently making the rounds on social media. None of this has been confirmed as fact by the palace, and it should not be taken as such. We are only here to bring you the gists and the whispers from the internet so we can discuss them together.